Welcome to a new edition of Successful Thinking Show. This is a 30-minute TV show created for entrepreneurs and business owners to spotlight products, services, events at the fraction of the cost of a commercial. Hey, if you are interested in spotlighting your business and have an interview conducted by a renowned media veteran and TV podcast host, well, this show is for you. If you want details, give us a call at 901-468-3858. That's 901-468-3858. You can also email us, Christie at ChristieTaylorConsulting.com. Well, we want to welcome you to an amazing episode where I'll have a chance to talk to this amazing gentleman. And let me tell you, he is an author and celebrity photographer. We're talking about Jerome Ewing, who has released his latest book, Face the Music and Pictures, which features a collection of photographs taken over the years. Now, the former Hopkins Park and Kankakee resident who was born in Chicago features decades of work in his latest book. And let me tell you, this book is traveling from 1977 to 2007. Yeah, we're talking decades where he was blessed to rub elbows with some of the world's biggest stars. And he has also had another book earlier that is entitled More Than Motown, the Jerome Ewing story that was published in 2014. But now, Face the Music and Pictures includes over 200 pictures, and it's sure to leave you speechless. Now, let me tell you, we're going to get into how he became a photographer, just this amazing artistic journey. First, welcome to Successful Thinking, Jerome Ewing. Thank you for being my guest.
Thank you for having me, Christie. God
You
bless.
know, First of all, I've had an opportunity to chat with you in previous conversations, to come by your production studio where we'll be talking about and also learning more about Best TV Network, which I saw on Roku. And I was like, oh my God, I've seen that channel. But before we get into the business of Jerome Ewing, can we talk about the artist and the creative? I understand you're from Chicago, but also Kankakee. Give me that bio, if you would. How did you get started?
Well, growing up in Chicago, that was a trying time. That was the glory years for me back then. I grew up in a project called the Village, and the Village was known for being very tough. Um, uh, and we moved from the Village to another community that was even tougher. And so I found myself getting into all kind of troubles. So by 1973, my grandmother passed, and my mother decided to leave Chicago and go to Hopkins Park, Illinois, where her brother was. And so now I'm leaving all this mischief in the city of Chicago, and now I become a country boy. And it was like night and day, but I think it saved my life in a way because the path that I was on in Chicago, you follow the leader, and sometimes that you follow the leader into the grave. And so it was a blessing to leave Chicago and go into a different environment, and it's kind of slowed me down. Um, and we stayed in Hopkins Park in the Kankakee area maybe 3 to 5 years. In 1977, my mother decided that she wanted to move out of that area. My aunt had had a was in an accident, and she couldn't stay in the cold weather anymore. So they decided to move to Phoenix. But on their way to Phoenix, they stopped in Memphis, Tennessee to see my uncle. And the rest is history. We never left.
The mighty
So,
Mississippi has a magic of its own. So you're on your way to Phoenix, and just to visit an uncle in Memphis, and the rest truly is history. Of
that's
course, that means that you have been exposed since the 70s to the evolution of the soul sound that was happening in
yes,
Memphis, as well as I
yes.
think the early years of the classic rap sound as it was beginning to emerge. And my question to you, Jerome, is when did you get bit by the creative bug? What came first? Was it more so just artistic expressions or photography? How did you end up in that world?
Well, um, I can remember actually leaving leaving the Chicago area, moving to the Memphis area. And one of my fondest memories was a publication in Jet magazine about all the new discos that was out. So in '77, it was the disco fever. Well, one of the clubs that was in the Ebony magazine was in Memphis. It was called 2001. So my motivation to get into Memphis was I wanted to come and go see this club that was in this magazine. So until then that I actually got to meet a guy named Pierre. He was a photographer at 2001. And I noticed that all of the ladies was going over there with Pierre. And that really piqued my interest at that time. And secondly, I was playing. I have a baseball background, and one of my neighbors ended up being Gene Bowlegs Miller. And some of your viewers may want to Google his name. But anyway, he had a WDIA softball team. And one day, walking to the store, I see him out there playing. I said, "Oh my God, that's." Anyway, I didn't know who he was, and I just asked them were they looking for other players, and they had no idea what kind of player I was. But anyway, I joined the team, and come to find out later that Gene Bowlegs Miller was, first of all, he went to school at Booker T. Washington with Maurice White, and Maurice White went on to start Earth, Wind, and Fire. But they were together at Chess Records, and
Yes.
Bowlegs actually was the trumpet player for Etta James. He
Wow.
discovered Ann Peebles, and then I later found out that he also discovered Peabo Bryson. So Bowlegs would never talk about that at the time, but the motivation was every time we play a game, Bowlegs would open up the trunk and he had all these records in it. And so from the records, I started DJing. Yeah, my good friend Odell Tidwell had a club called First Place, and I ended up DJing. And so that that started. That's where that started. As far as the pictures, that club I'm telling you about, that Odell's club, Odell's right hand man, one of his right hand men at the time was a guy named Robert McKenzie. Robert McKenzie, we call him Cartide, was the stage manager, one of the stage managers for the Barcades.
Wow. This
So
is
every show that come to town, they would go to. So I convinced them. I'm a photographer. I'm like, y'all need to take me with y'all every time. Let's take pictures and put the pictures up on the wall. So we became a threesome. So every time a show came to town, we all went. And so I had started to build a nice portfolio from that. So,
mm,
so by the time I moved to Atlanta in 1985, 86, I had a pretty nice portfolio already. So
this is amazing just how, that one stop over to visit an uncle led you on this amazing journey. And the names that you are dropping are legends, not just in Memphis, but across the country and around the world. And that's one of the magical things about Memphis too. You can meet anybody who's somebody in a short amount of time. And if you have gumption, you can definitely get into the click. Like you say, hey, y'all need me to also take pictures. So, and
yes.
FYI, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to get free concert tickets or want access to free events, become a photographer.
Yeah. I tell you, Chris, one day it was amazing. Odell called me one day. It was 2:30 in the morning. My phone rang. I said, I'm hoping this is Pam Grier or somebody, but it was Odell. And Odell said, man, guess what? Guess who just walked in the club? I said, who? He said, Stevie Wonder. I said, what? Now, at the time, I had never took a picture of a celebrity.
Mhm.
Man, I jumped up, put my clothes on, got down to the club. And as an eager young photographer, I walked right into the club, and I was mesmerized. Stevie was sitting there eating. I whipped out my camera, took a picture. all of a sudden somebody grabbed me, bodyguard grabbed. What are you? You know, but and that story is in the book, and I won't spoil it. And that story has a part two because the
Mm.
bodyguard that grabbed me actually 5 years later, that ended up being Michael Jackson's bodyguard, and it's a beautiful story coming with my
Wow.
next book, how part two. So we'll get into that, but so
Wow.
everything kind of bleeds into it. But I was just on a
Related.
journey, Christy,
Yes.
and it's just been amazing. And this book had to come out because as things was happening to me, I was saying to myself, "This is going to be a movie one day." I knew it was going to be a book, but I knew this because it's just so many wonderful uh, occurrences. I actually,
You know something? I before you, because I know we can have an amazing storytelling. Because I want to get to the fact that here you are now in the 1980s. You have landed into Atlanta. Of course, Atlanta was on the rise in the South. I
it
don't even
wasn't
know
at
that.
that time.
I was just
I got there ahead
I
of
was about to say
everybody.
I was about to say it was right before the Olympics. It
Yep.
was right before the music scene busted wide open. So with that being said, I've just got to share some of the photos, and I want you to tell me about this. So when you get to Atlanta, this is the caliber of people that you're meeting there. Kind of give me an
Yes.
idea of who's in this picture and what was going on.
So one day I get a phone call and told me that Harry Belafonte and Danny Glover was coming to town on a Feed the Hunger tour,
Mm.
and I was invited to participate as a photographer. And of course, I accepted. And this picture here is taken is Harry Belafonte, Barbara, Congressman Barbara Lee, Congressman John Conyers, and the young lady in the mid next to Danny Glover. I don't know her name, but she was the Atlanta person, I think, over the NAACP or something.
Wow, you know something, John Conyers. Of course, he represented Detroit for decades,
Yes.
just like Harold Ford Sr. have represented Memphis for decades, and Pop Conyers. Because I lived, there was a period of my life where I was in Detroit, and they used to call him Pops. And years later, my brother, because he's a political junkie, actually became friends with John Conyers
Yeah.
right around the time the Clinton years. So it's just really interesting. So once again, you when you land in Atlanta, you're very young, what, early 20s, and you're there before Atlanta has blown up. How did you get into the photography scene with your portfolio? Who was that first point of contact for you to start getting calls like Harry Belafonte's in town?
So how that started was I was a person that, well, say I was working at Federal Express. Let me say that.
Mhm.
And so Federal Express was it's still,
New
still a
company.
relatively new company, and it was
Yes.
people were still excited about it. So long story short, at this point I had a roommate, and you got to read the story how all that happened. It's just really fantastic. But I had a roommate, and my roommate loved to work overtime, and I was just the opposite. I didn't like to work overtime. And so one day, I don't know what the problem. I think it was a snow day or something. They forced everybody to work overtime. And so anyway, I end up with all these packages, and one of the packages I noticed was going to Motown Records, and I said, "Wow, ooh." So I took that package away and saved it to the last, right? So I made all my deliveries, and so when I get to the last stop, I get to the Motown stop. I'm going in to find out who's in charge and let them know that I'm a photographer and what I can do. Anyway, one thing led to another, and the package was going to a young lady named Janice Burley, and she and I told her what I did, and I told her I would bring her my portfolio. So I had a portfolio from these pictures from Memphis. When I brought it back, she was like, "Oh yes, wow!" And so from there, I was in. I was in.
Wow. You know, life, your life is really layered. So FedEx, of course, Federal Express, brand new company in Memphis, Tennessee, taking on that was it the overnight delivery, that was their slogan back in the day. And you end up in Atlanta, but you take an opportunity to deliver a package to Motown, which of course at the time had been moving from Detroit. I think they had satellites in Atlanta and in LA. I think they even had one in New York back
But
then.
here's what happened. Here's where the big break came. So in 1988, Motown got bought by MCA Records. And so now they brought me Bobby Brown, New Edition, Heavy D, Stephanie Mills, on and on and on and on. And they were the hottest record label in the country.
Wow.
Also at the time, um, every year there was it was the Jack the Rapper convention in Atlanta.
Sure
And
was.
so Jack the Rapper convention, for those who don't know, is a convention of just all of the artists, right? And it's invited all the DJs from the country. So it's just a hotel full of all of the dignitaries in that business. Every year I was the photographer for MCA. Started out the first year Motown, but it ended up being Motown MCA. So that, I mean, every year I would have just everybody in the room at one time. This particular picture
Like
here,
these young men, just
yeah,
like
out the gate, I got Boys to Men, ABC, BBD. As they was making the songs, I'm just right there in the midst of everything. So the journey was just amazing. I would pinch myself sometimes. You know, I was like, wow,
yeah,
this
yeah. You
is
know,
it.
another person, of course, with you being in Atlanta, and he is a native of Atlanta. We're talking about Jermaine Dupri. We're talking about when the record labels really started setting up shop in a major way in Atlanta. Uh, Tell me about this young man, and how did you make this connection? Who was the gentleman? Is that his father?
That's his father behind him, and
Now,
that's
his father,
Mayor.
most people don't know that Jermaine Dupri didn't have a rag to riches story. He was a suburbanite. His dad had done very well. So
Yes.
he was already, as you would say, hot Atlanta royalty. And then he starts a record label. So what is going on in this picture?
So, 1988, no, 1989, LaFace Records moves to Atlanta.
Mhm.
Um, and one of the writers that I met at that time was Dallas Austin. I don't know if you know his name. You know Dallas?
Yes, I
Okay.
know Dallas Austin. Yes,
Okay.
there's a lot of history.
Dallas was the first person. Then uh, city councilman Bill Campbell gave the key to the city. The picture you see there is 10 years later. Mayor Bill Campbell is giving Jermaine Dupri the key to the city. And I was there for
Wow.
both.
That is amazing. And
That's
speaking
a blessing there. I was there for both,
Mhm.
and
They got to
and
get the book. They got to get the book. They got to get the book. Now, speaking of Dallas Austin, that leads us into a, like you said, LaFace Records. You know, Babyface and them. They had moved there. L.A. Reid and Dallas Austin, of course, was a part of uh, that circle. And some of the artists that came out of LaFace, of course, TLC. And at some point, he actually dated Chili, right?
right, right.
Yeah, they have a child together. And here's a behind the scene picture of them. But I also found, I was totally amazed. You were on the set of some of the most iconic music videos that they were legendary when it came to music video production.
Yes. That's What About Your Friends video there. Yeah, I was director of photography for that video.
Wow.
So the whole Dallas Austin thing, people, I want you to get the book, but um, I actually met Dallas before Dallas got famous, as you would say. And so um, I, I was actually, people don't know that the group ABC, one of those is Dallas' little brother. and
Mhm.
he was the big fish at the time because the group had grew up. I didn't know Dallas was going to get as big as he did, but I was contacted to come and shoot a wedding, and I ended up shooting, and that's when I met Dallas. It was Dallas' sister's wedding,
Wow.
and
Wow. You know, you've
and
had a
and
lot
the
of
whole family embraced me at that time. So I
wow.
mean, even today, Dallas' mom, she's still living, and she was just a inspirational person for me. So yeah, I was in long before he really got big, and
Yeah, because you were there, as you say, in the 80s. You know, Atlanta would get super hot in the 90s. So you've been there, as you said, when Dallas got the key. You were there when Jermaine, a decade later, got the key. You were there when this young man was starting to make some noise. How did he end up in Atlanta? And tell me about this photo.
all right, Will Smith. See, at the time of this shooting, his name was Fresh Prince. That's all he had. And if you remember, he had won the Grammy, but they didn't show it on TV, and it was a big controversy. So this was maybe 6 months later. Uh, he had went out to L.A. and auditioned for the Fresh Prince, I think, and they was calling him back he was going this time to meet Quincy Jones and
Mm.
find out if he got it or not. So he stopped into Atlanta, and I want people to read the story. I won't talk too much about it, but the story is so it does something with the story. But he was on his way to Atlanta, and we had a moment at that big window you see.
Yeah,
Um,
what radio station was this?
that's a W.
Whose show was it? Do you remember whose show he was
That's
on?
Mike Roberts and
Mike
Carol
Roberts.
Blackman.
Wow.
So at that day, the whole mystery, and I'm not gonna give it away.
Don't, yeah, they got to buy the book. Okay, you all, this is
There was
so
somebody
amazing.
else. Let me say there was somebody else at the radio station that day, and they actually got blessed, and they became a big star, and it would blow you away to find out who
Wow.
that person was, and they was unknown, they were new, and next thing you know, but yeah, read the book,
Wow.
read the
You
book.
know, your life is truly a storybook, and I'm glad that you're writing books. Of course, like you say, you have a book that you released in 2014 that chronicles when you were working for Motown. This one is book one about, and I love the title, "Face the Music in Pictures," and even beyond the music. Even beyond the music, you were starting to meet up and coming stars, and I have to have you share your relationship with Martin and how it even influences his television show that would come out in the 90s that is now legendary, that is now iconic, and they're talking about a reunion. So, how did you get this picture? And I see that he's doing a lifesaver. He's literally you caught him in the moment of eating a lifesaver.
Oh wow. Well, the Martin story is really interesting. So I was telling you earlier about the Jack the Rapper convention. So every
Yes.
year I'm MCA's photographer. So in in 93, 92 or 90, no, 92, MCA did the soundtrack for House Party 2, the
That's right.
Pajama Jam. And
Yes.
so I had Kid and Play.
Right.
That's who I had. And so in the
That is where you met
hotel though,
Martin.
in the hotel there was Prince was under us. Warner Brothers had Prince. Everybody had somebody. So we were the last one. We had the house party, Pajama Jam. And so after everybody left all the other parties, I got to the party a little bit late because I'm trying to do different things too. And it was just so happened there was so many people trying to get in. Two young ladies I didn't know asked me to get in, and they were very sexy. Of course, I bring them in, right? So I got the whole MCM's. Now I'm coming in the party with two ladies, right? And everything in the party is Jerome, Jerome, Jerome. Everybody need pictures, right? Jerome, Jerome, Jerome.
Oh
And
my
you can
God.
see Martin standing here on the side, right? So I never, never thought about anything. A year later, Martin came out with his own show, and when he came out with the character Jerome with the MCM, it was just, oh my God.
Oh
And I
my,
love it. Now, keep in mind the comedy is his, but
yes.
it was just based on the
Yeah.
character. So
Oh wow.
I love it, and I have no problem with it. I love
Mm.
Martin. I
Yeah.
was one of the people every day, every time the show come on, I'm gonna be there to watch Martin. That's one of my favorite shows of all time.
Now you talked about coming into a party and then as Jerome with two ladies flanking you. Here's a picture. I know one of the young ladies, but who's the gentleman and the other young lady?
Now, the gentleman in the middle, he was a big executive with the Face Records or either Arista, because Arista is the distribution for the
Yes.
Face. The young lady is Dia from Damien Dane,
Oh,
LaFace first artist. And I'm the only picture have that I know of that I have plenty of pictures of Damien Dame as a group and individual. And this is actually taken from Dallas Austin getting the key to the city.
wow. And the other young lady is none other than the future rising star, Tony
Tony,
Braxton.
yes,
You
yes.
know, I just gotta say, you have been in the room. This picture, these are two separate pictures. I'm just like, speaking of Tony Braxton, her baby sister, far left, the baby girl, who will later go on to have her own music and be on the reel and have a reality show. But there's also some of the young Alicia Keys, two of the young ladies that were in Destiny's Child, Latanya Luckett, and of course Escape's very own Tiny. But the other young lady behind her, who is she?
I'm not sure.
She
I
was.
think
She
she's the
kind of looks like.
executive. She's the
Yeah,
executive with LaFace.
okay, so she probably was an executive. And to the right, of course, this is none other than Lisa Ray. And is that Juicy J beside her? It looks like Juicy J.
No, that's 112 Jagged Edge. Yeah. And yeah.
Wow. I mean, so many legends that
So,
you
and when this picture
captured.
was taken, it was really based on what the book is probably based on. That I call the party of the century, and so
Wow.
that's what people. You'll see a lot more pictures like that. Now,
And this,
this
of
here,
course,
this is
I gotta say that you have an opportunity. Let me say this as we get back to this: is that you having touchdown in Memphis, it being linked to so much of your life, you haven't had an opportunity to even capture the legends from this city. The Reverend Al Green, and of course, the late great Ruby Wilson, and you are in the middle with
Carla Thomas, my
Carla
friend
Thomas,
Carla.
your friend Carla. Come on now, Memphis
I got
legend.
pictures of old pictures with her. That's one of the that was probably 2017, but we go way back. They had a Stax reunion in Atlanta.
Mhm.
I would say 89 somewhere, and it was Carla Thomas, Isaac Hayes, Johnny Taylor,
Woo.
William Bell,
Mm.
um, Mary Wilson. For some reason, I didn't know she was with Stax, but she was
I think she did one solo project after she left the Supremes. I
and
think so.
Rufus Thomas, and they all showed up. And so I got a, I just, I had a ball that day, and I end up, I hate to say this, should I say this? Johnny Taylor ended up taking the limo and running off to the next spot because it's a place in Atlanta State, it was a club we was going to, and so I had to stay with Carla. So Carla became my friend that night, and they just
Oh,
followed me to but I was gonna make sure Carla was right. That that's home girl,
still doing great music, still doing great. I had
Yeah.
a chance to meet Rufus Thomas in my radio career, working for, at the time it was called Clear Channel, and it also owned WDIA while I was working on a gospel station. And one time, the gospel station was sitting right beside the DIA studio on a Saturday,
Uh-huh.
and James Davis, who was a legend in radio here, had Rufus Thomas in the studio, and he needed some help with the computer because I think we were modernizing. So I went over there and I got to tell you, Rufus Thomas said, "Oh, I wrote a song about you." I think it was called "Bit Legged Woman." But he
Oh
was such a
man,
character. But he would come in the studios and come stop by the station. He was still touring well into his later years, so he was
jokester. He
pretty.
loved to tell. He just loved. He had so much life in him. So
Yes,
yeah,
yes, 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 yes. And I tell you, now, of course, as we get to this wrap up, I know they have to buy the book, ladies and gentlemen. This celebrity photographer author has a book that's out. Go to any digital platform. Now, if you're in Memphis, he even has a few hard copies at his full service production studio that we're going to be talking about. That possibly was inspired by the fact that you started segueing from the music scene into the film scene. Of course, we know, as you said, you inspired Martin to even add Jerome into his very famous television show. But you've had some scenes as well. Kim Basinger and Val Kimmer and The Real McCoy. Tell me about this movie opportunity that you had and the photo on set.
yeah. That's another. That's another blessing. That's why I say this journey, the blessings. Oh, they just poured. So as a FedEx man, I would go to this office every day downtown Atlanta, and there's a little white guy in there with a beard, looked like Wolfman Jack, right? And every day I would go in there, we would talk. He was just fun, just cool. So eventually, when I went in there, he wasn't in there anymore. They had the secretary, and I finally asked him. I said, What happened to the guy that used to sit here? I used to have talks with." And she said, "Do you know who that was?" I said, "Nah, he was just a nice guy. I never did ask him his name. You know, how you talk to people something. I never asked him his name." She said, "Well, sir, turn around and look at the wall behind you." So I turned around, and all these posters was on the wall, right? Scarface,
No.
Sea of Love. All these movies, right? She said that was the executive producer for Scarface. His name was Blue
Oh,
Scroller, right? So
whoa.
I said, "Oh my God!" I was just
The money behind
yes,
the
yes.
film.
So anyway, a couple of days later, I come there, and he he had left a FedEx package for me, right? So in the FedEx package, he offered me a part in this new movie that was coming to town. I didn't even know it was a movie. We hadn't even talked about it. We were just sitting there talking about life things, just. But
Mhm.
anyway, he offered me a part in the movie, and and so when I get to the airport to find where the part was being shot at. Of course, the airline was a made up airline. It wasn't like American or Delta. It was and I didn't remember. I didn't write the name down. And every place I went, they didn't know anything about it. Right? They was like, "You never heard of that airline?" Of course, you just made. So anyway, just as I was about to give up, somebody pointed me in the right direction, and I found the set. But the part that I was going to play is already shot.
Mhm.
So they told y'all can either go home or be an extra like everybody else. So the first time on the set, it's a movie. Kim Basinger, and okay, we're gonna do that. So I'm walking up and down like everybody else, being an extra, and all of a sudden you heard the director say, "Cut." He walked up to me. He said, "Who are you?" I said, "What you mean?" He said, "Lou wants you to hold your hands up, and he wants your wife to come and hug you, and that's how we're gonna start this last scene."
Wow.
I sat there and I said, "Oh my God, this man just stopped his $1 million movie to make sure
What?
I'm in there. That's special.
That
That's."
is special.
And so
Favor.
he came back. He said, "Just because he did that doesn't mean it's going to be in the movie, right? It can be on the cutting room floor." So when the movie came out, we was the first ones in the theater, and it stayed in the movie. So I'm
What?
so happy for that. So I mean, the blessings are there. I am so blessed. I am. So
The blessings that you're talking about has included the fact, from Memphis to Atlanta to LA, just everywhere you've met. Here's a collage of other Sade and Stephanie Mills and, I mean, Keith Sweat. Ti. Who's the gentleman at the bottom? He looks familiar.
That's Norman Brown.
Norman Brown, the
If
jazz
you like
artist.
jazz,
The
yeah.
jazz artist. And of course, all of these pictures and so many more, and the stories that partner and explain these amazing moments are in your latest book, Face the Music in Pictures. This is book one, the Jerome Ewing story. And if you really want to go back, you can also, when you go to Amazon or one of the online bookstores, be sure to check out his Motown book as well, Jerome Ewing. And you might see in the background there that there's Vest TV networks. And I just kind of want us, as we get to the wrap up, to talk about your continual journey because, as a creative, we always have amazing things that we want to do. And now you have your own television network featuring movies and TV shows, a global network that anyone can watch around the world on Roku. How did that come together? And how can artists and creatives and filmmakers participate?
Well, so let me start here. Let me start at the beginning. So, 2010, I lost my mother, and my mother's name was Vestine, right? So, um, that's one. You never get over your mom. You just, I never get over. And so, I wanted to honor her in a way. So, in 2011. I actually opened up a Ewing Entertainment Studio Museum downtown Memphis, and I called it my little Motown Museum because it had a lot of it was a nice little cozy place, and so I named the lobby after her, you know, and I stayed there for a few years, and after closing that, 2014 is when I wrote my first book.
Mhm.
And I also opened um, a studio called Fame Studio 7 with 7 different rooms. So I honored her with a room there.
Mhm.
Well, 2017, I had a mild stroke. And
Mm.
so when you have a stroke, if it's not external where people see, you're hurting on the outside, um, my problem was internal. And so it led me to decide to retire from the photography and everything because I think I did enough, and I wanted to now focus my attention on the collection that I had and see what I can do with
Mhm.
it. And so, in researching it and everything, I found out how I can get my own network on the Roku system. But I wanted to the funny thing about it, I actually worked for Time Warner Cable as an installer, and when I was installing cables, I noticed that the cable bills were so high. In some instances, they were getting rid of the cable box and they were keeping the internet, and a lot of them was getting this thing called Roku, and I had never I mean Roku. So
Mhm.
once I researched it, I found out how big it was,
Yeah.
and at the time. Uh, it was a 58 million, and had a projection of 5 years of a billion, and I decided I wanted a piece of that.
Yeah.
So I got into the system, and so now and I'm not a content creator per se at the moment, and so I'm using other content. So I am looking for content creators to come and be a part of what we're doing here at STV Network. Some of the shows that I am looking for actually are some cooking shows and some workout shows, and I know there are plenty of people here just in the Memphis area, uh, n- let alone around the country, because
Mhm.
actually we have a satellite station in South Haven, Mississippi,
Okay.
and we're opening one in St. Louis and in Atlanta. So we
And
have
this
satellite.
is because you also are providing, oftentimes people can have a network and then you just have to create your content, send it in, but you're also
Yes.
providing the facility, the production facilities so that
Yes.
a content creator can actually produce their shows.
Yes. So last year we we started out. Now this is Googleable. When I first started this network, uh, it was right when COVID hit, and right after I had already invested in it, and COVID hit, and now everything is on lockdown. And so, me being the person I am, I had to think of something creative. And so, I have a business partner. I call him the Great Shaw, Ivor Shaw. He actually had a building that was a drive-through. So, what I decided to do was I was going to make the first drive-through TV station in the country.
Wow.
And if you Google that, I did that. And so, during the pandemic, I had a drive-through TV station that you can drive through, and I can interview from the drive-through window.
Wow.
Just I'm never gonna stop. I'm just, but and so last year we opened up a studio, a bigger office where we can actually have room to film, and so we're a cozy size facility now, and we have space for recording podcasts or small segments of shows. We have a gift shop, which we mentioned that now we're selling our books and T-shirts, and we actually are going to be looking for. We're also going to be announcing a talent contest because we are looking for a artist to start marketing, and so that's coming soon too. And besides that, I think we've been invited to so many places now. Now it's time for me to kind of settle down and put things in perspective and 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 capitalize on my great fortunes.
Indeed, indeed. I had an opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, to go by that space, and as a matter of fact, you're in one of the spaces right now. You're
Yes.
doing this interview from your production facility, but I also want them to have a peek into what they can see. There we are. There we are, right here in
Yeah.
Memphis,
Hey. Hey.
Tennessee. Be sure to reach out to Jerome Ewing. Of course, you can find him on the social media platforms. You can actually go to Facebook, and he has several opportunities for you to contact him. You can go to Vest TV Network on Facebook. Also, you have, I believe, your production facility. The Motown is on there. So let me make sure Jerome Ewing, the Vest TV Network, Ewing Entertainment Studio Museum is on Facebook, and More Than Motown. And if you want to give them a call, you can feel free to call them at 662 314 1991. That's 662 314 1991. Shop Memphis, support Memphis, and of course, you can support an amazing photographer, a legend in his own right, who has definitely been in the right places at the right times with the right people, making history, capturing history. And now here you are once again helping the next generation to do the same. So hopefully we can get you to pick up that camera again, maybe some limited editions photography, but we appreciate the work you've already shared with the world. And we're looking to see more books come out because I believe, as
I
you
got two
said,
more coming.
you have a movie. You have a movie. We'll
Well,
keep that
thank
on the wraps, though. We'll keep that on the wraps. So, thank you so much. Any last words you want to share with us, Mr.
you. Yeah.
Jerome?
Yeah. One thing I really would like people to do, I would like you to go on to Ruco and add this TV,
Mhm.
because I think in the in the wild it won't be free anymore, and it's good to just go have it under there. And a couple of things, programming, real quick. If you're a person that works out 6 o'clock every morning, 7 days a week at 6 a.m. exactly, our workout start every morning. At 7:30 it's kids programming, all kind of cartoons. After that is westerns. If your parents like western, we consider ourselves grandmama TV. So we have westerns coming up. Next after that are comedies like Sanford and Son, and then later in the evenings we have music videos for. So we have a little bit of something for everybody. Late night if you like black and white old movies, we have that. One last thing, if you turn to the best TV and there's something on there that you don't want to see, just scroll down to the VOD and pick your own. So it's a little something for everyone. And I think my vision is in a year or two, half our shows will be live anyway. So that's my goal. And I
Wow, I
think
like
it.
that. I like that. So you have a lot of classics, and of course, there's a lot of networks who have become extremely profitable. And I actually had a chance to check out some of your classic black and whites, which have a lot of black actors. I really, really like that. And as you say, Sanford and Son, the music videos, the children programming. You even have I know you have a locally produced clown show. So
Yes,
that's the
yes,
type of content as well. And as he said, if you are a content creator, short films, web series, you have
yes.
a feature film, documentary, even if you have your own reality TV show, maybe you're even filming your play productions, be sure to contact them. Best TV Network, they're looking for you. They're reviewing content now. And I really appreciate you continuing to be the light, creative light that you are. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christy, for having me.
Mhm.
I am beyond ecstatic about this interview. So I'm looking forward to working with you somewhere in the future, and I'm sure we will get a chance to get together. So thank you.
Indeed.
I hope your viewers get a chance to go and experience the Best TV network.
All right. Experience Best TV Network today. Go ahead to Roku channel, add them, check out the content. And if you're a content creator, you can add your own content and be a part of a global brand. So thank you so very much. Salute to you all. Have an amazing day.